Hey all, Ron here from Military Images Magazine with a new episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail. In this episode, I want to talk about Alfred M. Wood, the colonel of the 14th Brooklyn, one of the better known Union regiments from New York. Wood had been associated with the regiment since before the war, and when the war came, he and his men were among the first units to leave the comfort of their homes, in this case, New York, Brooklyn, New York, as the 14th Brooklyn tells you, and head down to Washington, D.C. This was in 1861, summer of 1861. The regiment proved its mettle in battle at Bull Run, or Manassas, if you prefer, the first battle in which the Union lost that first battle. The regiment, the 14th Brooklyn, acquitted themselves well. Colonel Wood came away with a severe and serious leg wound and fell into Confederate hands. He would spend the next 6 months as a prisoner of war in Richmond before gaining his release and going back to a hero's welcome in his native Brooklyn. He did not return to the war. First Bull Run was his last battle. In 1863, he ran for mayor and was in that office when the veterans, all of his comrades from the 14th Brooklyn, and thousands of other Brooklynites who had served returned home at the end of the war. Wood put out a proposal for the council, the Brooklyn Council, and they adopted it, was to give a service medal to all of the soldiers who served from Brooklyn and had a combat role. So you had to be in battle to be able to receive the service medal. When they counted them all up, there was something over 7,000 medals. On October 25th, 1866, a little more than a year after the end of hostilities in Brooklyn, thousands of Union veterans from the Army and the Navy, thousands and thousands of spectators, dignitaries, including Wood, including Admiral Farragut and others. Ulysses S. Grant was invited but declined. All of these folks were gathered around the bunting, the flags, the patriotism and fervor of the crowd, remembering all the hometown heroes, the ones who survived and also the ones who never made it home. Wood, by this time, he was ex-mayor. He only ran, or pardon me, only served one term. He did not run, chose not to run for a second term. He gave a moving speech, which is really interesting to me because these early post-war speeches, when veterans like Wood are still charged up and still feel the intensity of battle, still dealing with the aftermath of all of the loss that they suffered, still is close to them. Years later, when they were older veterans, it would mellow a little bit, but definitely not in 1866. So I want to give you this speech. I want to read it to you. And you'll get, I think, the vibe of this, and you'll get a sense of just how raw and emotional he is, and also how beautiful his writing is. So here we go. It's titled The Address of Ex-Mayor Wood. And here is Wood speaking. Mr. Mayor and gentlemen of the Common Council, I am truly grateful for the honor of being selected to speak in behalf of my comrades, the veteran soldierly of Brooklyn. Yet the theme and the occasion is so grand, I feel that my speech is entirely inadequate properly to express my thanks to you in behalf of these noble men, these heroes of 100 battlefields, for the testimonials which your gratitude has prepared and which today you present as a token of appreciation of their valor and their patriotism, as well as for the service rendered the city you have the honor to represent. when treason burled her fires upon Fort Sumter, when the thunder of the rebellious guns awoke the loyal heart of the North. What said this patriotic city to these brave men, these soldiers of liberty? Go forth, respond to the call of your country. Leave with us your wives and your little ones, your mothers and your sisters, and we will be fathers and brothers to those you leave behind. They shall be as our children. Go you forth and return, not until foul treason is blotted from the land, and the proud flag of your country shall wave in triumph from the lakes to the Gulf. Such was the spirit of the land and such the language of the city. How nobly has Brooklyn stood by her promise given in these days of darkness. Millions of treasure has she poured forth to sustain it, and the families of her soldiers have always received her promised aid. Not a regiment left her limits ere she had recorded the name of every soldier and remembered the loved ones he left behind him as special wards upon her bounty and her munificence. Nor was public feeling only exhibited in the action of the Common Council. No, no. The great heart of the people beat to unison with the patriotic throbs of your city fathers. As regiment after regiment moved through her streets to the seat of war, crowds of people followed, old and young, rich and poor, while cheer upon cheer echoed through her now peaceful avenues, and flags and handkerchiefs waved from every window. How felt the soldiers then? His courage was invigorated, his strong heart grew stronger. The love of liberty became the passion of his soul as he gazed upon the multitudes and listened to the plaudits around him. And he resolved to do or die for God and his native land. Such was the departure not of a single regiment, but of every soldier who left the city and marched to the front. All joined in the encouragement, and not a man went forth to battle but felt he had the approval even of those who wept at his departure. Many wept, but it was not because their loved ones went forth to battle. They wept at the separation because foul treason had raised its hideous head where all had been joy and where the peaceful pursuits of men had been untrammeled. They wept, but they cheered as they wept. So went the soldier forth, and for nearly 5 long, weary years, the tide was not stayed. Or Brooklyn continued almost daily to send forward her sons, and not a man marched but felt that a good name of the city depended on his individual courage. Proud days were the days of those 5 years. The courage of the city was being tried, and all that time Brooklyn did not falter. Her sons did not desert her. Thus went these gallant men. Thousands returned no more to their homes, but their mother earth took them to her bosom. They met death upon 100 crimson fields, and their spirits returned to their God. Nobly have these heroic dead died for truth, liberty, and a higher civilization. It is not too much to say that their spirits mingle with us this day and rejoice as we rejoice in this crowning manifestation of the patriotism of the city of Brooklyn. They rejoice with us that treason has perished and that the army of the Union has crushed to the earth the foulest rebellion that ever stained the page of history. Peace to their ashes, an endless and glorious memory to their deeds. Did Brooklyn simply send her armies forth and leave them to the rude encounter of arms? Cared she not for them after they were numbered with the grand army of the Union? Not so, not so. Her love was with them. Her treasure followed them. She had her sanitary commission, her soldiers' aid society on every battlefield. Her Christian cordon gathered around her soldier and was near him in the fight, was with him in the hospital, dressed his wounds, bathed his fevered brow, fed his hunger, or buried his remains with care and tenderness. Wrong has always perished, will always perish, and with the more enormous the guilt, the more certain the punishment. For the rights of men cannot be betrayed, with the betrayer escape. So with the rebellion, its dark history is finished. It has been ground to atoms. Treason has become odious. But all that went forth from this goodly city did not perish on the field of carnage or in the rebel prisons. Thousands returned to the city of their home. How received this loyal city her returned heroes? Her arms open to them, triumphal entries, such as were recorded to the heroes of the Roman Republic in its palmist days, such as the ancient Greeks awarded. She honored them with glad hosannas and placed the crowning laurel wreath upon each manly brow. She did all that was expected or desired, and every soldier felt his heart glow with pride at the public recognition of his service and trials. But Brooklyn was not satisfied, though the soldiers felt that she had done all that the fullest gratitude or patriotism required. She felt, grand old city that she is, that something else remained to be done, and she resolved to give each soldier some tangible token of her appreciation of his valor, that each one should have a memento to be preserved and handed down from father to son. How leaps forth the heart of this soldier at this further testimony. As his soul was already full, it now overflows with gratitude to the city that sent him forth. Words are but symbols of ideas, and my words fail to express a just return for the present public acknowledgement. The soldier feels that he has done his duty when the city of his home approves his course. In behalf of these heroic men, I receive these mementos, and I return to you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the Common Council, the heartfelt thanks of every Brooklyn soldier. Peace is again restored. The beloved banner of our fathers, and not a star is missing from its azure field. May God, who has given us the victory, be with our land forever, and may the day hasten when peace and concord shall cover this whole land as the waters cover the sea. And so you have the speech of former mayor, former colonel of the 14th Brooklyn, Alfred M. Wood, on an October day in 1866. 5 years after he went to war, more than a year after the hostilities ended, the men still remembering those days when they marched off through the streets of Brooklyn and to the seat of war in the South. So many to return, those that did receiving Brooklyn's Service Medal in honor for their service from a grateful city. So thanks for listening. See you on the next episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail.